Hey guys, it is Christina here. I hope you are having the most amazing day ever. I wanted to come and talk about this new study that has just been done by the Heart Healthy Program Prevention Clinic at St Paul's Hospital in collaboration with the University of British Columbia. So I've got some notes here because, I want to remember it all. So essentially they've come out with this new study. I say that because I don't even know how this could be called a study. Essentially, they've come out with this new study to say that keto and keto-like diets, speaking about low carb, high fat type diets, are dangerous, and that they're going to, what did they say? That basically it doubles the risk of heart attack and stroke. That's what they wrote, claiming that keto doubles the risk of heart attack and stroke, which is a load of baloney. So this for me is one of those moments where we've got to come back to, how did they do the science? What does it actually mean? And let's have a proper look at it, because this study was done with 305 people. So 305 people who already had some type of heart condition already. They were already going to see this clinic because they had things like diabetes, they had all sorts of other metabolic disorders that put them at risk of heart disease. And so they did this study of 305 people that were attending this clinic. And essentially these 305 people were given a 24-hour food survey. So it's not even a diary. It's not where they take it home and actually fill it out as they're actually eating. It's where they have to recall what they've eaten for the day. So I want you to think about this in your own life. How many times have you gone into the fridge and just grabbed a little bit of something, and later if I asked you what did you have to eat today, you wouldn't remember that something that you grabbed and ate. Also when it comes to these types of surveys, there's a little bit of they're very problematic, because the human memory is not necessarily so fabulous when it comes to recalling all of this information. And I know this with my own patients as well. I expect that they're probably going to make some little errors and mistakes when they're recalling to me what they would have on an average day, simply because we all do it. We all have things that happen in our lives where, I was at my friend's house and she offered me a biscuit, and you forget that that's what happened, and so you don't write that down. Or you're making something and it might be you're making a cake for a friend's birthday and you stick your finger in the batter and you lick it. All of that counts towards something that you've put into your mouth and is going to affect your calorie intake for the day, your macros, your micros, all of that type of stuff. But we forget those things because they're little, or they might be out of our normal patterns, or for a whole bunch of different reasons, including that sometimes we might fudge a little bit of things because we don't want to receive judgment. So for example, that chocolate bar that you got on the way home, when you filled up your car with petrol, you might forget about that, purposely or not purposely. Mostly not purposely, but you might have forgotten that that's what you had, until later you find the wrapper and you go, oh my god, I forgot to write that down. So this was a 24-hour survey, and so essentially there's lots of problems with that. Then the other element of this study was that they then went ahead and labeled anyone who had less than 25%, eating less of 25% of their calories for the day from carbohydrates, and more than 45% of their fat calories for the day as the keto group. Now, if we were to put that into perspective, so assuming that 300,000, or let's say 3,000 calories was your daily intake, based on that percentage, 180 grams of your carbs, 180 grams of your calories came from carbohydrates. So you essentially had nearly 200 grams of carbohydrates, right? Which is essentially nearly 10 times what you need to actually get into ketosis and being in keto. So essentially, if I'm working with somebody who doesn't want to be carnivore, for example, but wants to be ketovore or keto, then my goal is to get them under 20 grams of carbs a day. And that's what my goal is, to get them under 20 grams of carbs. Theirs was 187 grams of carbs. So that is exponentially higher than what you need to actually be in ketosis or even be considered low carb, high fat. Now, the other element of that is that essentially they were eating high carb, high fat diet. That's what they were eating, a high carb and high fat diet, because they hadn't dropped their carbohydrates low enough to be considered low carb. And therefore the fat probably also wasn't the right type of fat or any of that. We don't have that information either. But essentially high fat, high carb. Now, if I have a patient that I want to get them to gain weight because they're severely underweight, I'm going to feed them a high carb, high fat diet. That's how you make people gain weight, because you're giving them both fuel sources. So essentially the body can only use one major fuel source at a time. So it's either going to use carbohydrates if they're available because they're quick and they're fast, or it's going to use fat as its fuel source. Now, if you put fat and carbs in at the same time, the fat gets stored and the carbohydrates gets used. If there's not enough carbohydrates, then the body will start to tap into the fat. But if you're eating both high carbs and high fat, you're using one source, which is the sugar and the carbs, and you're storing the other. And the other gets stored in the body, around the liver, ready to be used for another point in time. And so it's actually the way that you make people gain weight, not lose it. And so this for me is a little bit of a bugbear, because when it comes to the world of science and the media, like the media has splashed this out everywhere today, right? That keto diets cause heart disease and stroke and blah, blah, blah. And how many people are going to read this and go, oh my gosh, I can't do keto, or I can't do carnivore because look, it says I'm going to double my risk of heart attack and stroke. And it's based on false, misleading information and junk science. Like, it's basically junk science. This shouldn't be used as science. This may be used as an indication to do further, more stringent science. This it hasn't even been peer reviewed. So no peers have gone through it and gone, oh, here's some major design faults in this. Or yes, this is really great science. Neither of those has happened. But what has happened is that it's been splashed across the media, and it's basically false information, because it's not certified, qualified information. It's 24 hours. It's not even the right criteria to actually match a keto diet or even a low carb diet. And so they're giving this information to people. Why is the question. You've got to ask the reason why. And I could answer that, but I'm going to get a label. But I always think, it's a good idea to start to ask those questions why yourself, and follow the money, because the money is always right on the button as to who's going to benefit from this type of science. Like science that's going to keep people sick, who's going to benefit from that? And that's essentially what this is. It's junk science. And I say that knowing in my head that these types of studies can be beneficial when they're leading to more research, but to use them as it has been used today, like if you look through the media, or I've seen several reports already around this, to use it to scare people off of trying to help better their health, for me is very, very dangerous. It also goes to show to me the lack of understanding that these particular individuals who conducted this research have on what actually equates keto and the ketogenic diet, or anything that is along those actual lines. They have limited understanding of what that actually means. And so this is like all of the other stuff that gets done in this space, where science is used as a way to discredit, shut down, and stop the growth and healing of individuals. And it's not necessarily like, for the layperson who doesn't actually know how to go and read the science, like it's designed to confuse you. It's designed to say things and manipulate you with the words that they're actually using to make you think in a certain way, so that you will act in a certain way based on that information, and you'll do it with the science is backing me up, the science is supporting what I'm doing, and I'm looking for evidence-based medicine. This isn't evidence-based. This is a survey, And a survey does not equal evidence in the sense that it's not tried, it's not tested, the people size is really small, the method of study is really small, it's just observational. Now, observational can lead to further studies and further investigation, but we've got to set the parameters right. We've got to get the things right in regards to what actually equals keto. If we're going to make a claim like keto-like diets damage health, then we need to actually set the parameters and have those parameters match what the industry is actually telling people and what those parameters actually are that they're working on. And I think that, for me, I talked about this a little bit in my podcast episode with Dr. Suresh on the Meat Medic, and it'll come out in a couple of weeks, so you'll see it then. But essentially, we talked about this a little bit in that observational studies can be useful in starting to create a hypothesis, but they are not the gold standard of studies, and it's really hard to get good qualified information and evidence-based medicine when it comes to nutritional health, when it comes to natural health. And part of that reason is that there's no money in it. So, for example, if I say that, let's say I find a herb, and it's the magic fairy dust herb, right? This magic fairy dust herb fixes some type of condition. Even if it does exactly what I say it does, and it's fixing this magical condition magically, unless I could patent that herb, I'm not going to make a ton of money out of it. I'm going to make some money in regards to growing it and being able to distribute that. But unless I could patent it and turn it into a drug, I'm not going to make a lot of money out of it, because you can't patent nature. You can patent the extracts that you pull out of it and, make the active constituents up in a lab. You could start to patent that, but you couldn't patent the actual herb itself. And therefore, the money to investigate and do really good quality research and really good quality studies on it are not actually going to be very available, because it costs money to do science. Scientists need to feed their families as well. It costs money to do research, especially if they're going to be long-term studies, so 5 years, 10-year type studies. Then it's going to cost money to be able to do those things. And if there's not a financial return, then the investor is not going to put money in, unless you've got somebody who's just doing it out of goodwill, which is very few and far between, of people who have got the money to actually back that type of science and investigate it long term with no real investor return for it. It just doesn't happen. It's not what's happening in the world of science. And so therefore, if there's no money in it, we get very limited research standards, all of the things, and actually creating good qualitative information out of it. And so the evidence-based medicine is not actually there. But then to see something like this, that we know is not good quality research, it's observational, it doesn't meet any standard criteria, it's not even peer reviewed in any way, shape or form, to see it splashed all over the newspapers and all over the internet to tell people to stop doing the keto diet to heal their bodies, is really sad, because it's not good quality evidence-based medicine either. And so, yeah, those are my thoughts. If you've been reading the study, those are my thoughts. I can tell you from my own experience that I'm not doing keto, I'm doing carnivore, but they're very closely linked. The only thing in keto that I don't do is all the vegetables and stuff. I'm just eating the meat. The meat and the fat, baby, is where I'm at. And so for me, I can tell you it has reversed my diabetes. And it has helped me reduce my weight by 39 kilos, reduce my waist size, reduced all of my other markers that would potentially put me at risk of heart disease. It's helped me reduce all of those things. So from that perspective, I can only say it's been great for me. If you're not getting those benefits, what I would generally say is you probably need some more support, and that's where it's really good to get a practitioner to work with, to get a coach to work with, to get somebody who understands the ins and outs, as well as the emotional side of this particular protocol, or any protocol where you are starting to lose weight, because there is an element of safety that comes up. So I talked about this a little bit on my Facebook page, which is where I did a study. I did a post essentially around how, for a lot of the women that I work with, there comes a point within their journey that they might find that they don't feel safe in their own bodies. And that's because when we start to lose weight and we start to look good, it's almost like we give permission to the outside world to comment on our body. And that means that we can get some unwanted attention. And that unwanted attention can trigger like old wounds, like maybe where you were in high school and you got teased by the boys because you started to grow boobs and you didn't really like it, was very uncomfortable. It might have triggered some previous sexual abuse experience that you've had in your life. It might trigger all sorts of different things. Like, for example, you might have been somebody that learnt that it was safe for you to hide in the background but not to be up front. And if that was the case, then being up front by people starting to go, wow, you're looking amazing and you're losing weight and look at how great you are, that can put the spotlight on you, and suddenly you feel unsafe as well. And so that will create a level of self-sabotage where you start to sabotage your own benefits because of these emotions that are coming up. And for me, that's one of the spaces that I work with. If you're in my Carnivore support group, that's one of the spaces that we work on, is actually healing the wounds of the past, so that we can move past the sabotaging experiences that we have, so that we can get the health that we actually want, we can get the longevity that we actually want, that we can get the bodies that we actually want and enjoy those things. And so to get long-term weight loss, you have to do the physical aspects, but you also have to do the emotional, spiritual aspects as well. And so if you are struggling, if you're not quite getting the results that you actually want, tap into something like my support group or somebody else's, or work with a private practitioner. And I have people in the support group, I have people working with me privately. It all depends on what you actually need and what's going to work best for you with your life at this moment in time. And so, tap into those resources. We're here for you to help you on your journey as well as our own. And so there you go. Those are my thoughts for today. I hope you have the most amazing day ever, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Watch out for junk science.